I don't want to go. I mean, I want to go, but nah, I'm gonna keep my
I
thoughts
should
to
have played this
myself.
earlier. All right, so the last three videos is for each one of the main mafia. So the first video is for Theus.
Let's get this straight. Your Stop Woke Act prevents college professors from bringing up woke subjects like the idea that racism has pervaded social and legal structures. Yes. Okay, so that's obviously against the First Amendment. I could do that with my eyes closed. That's against the First Amendment. See? Against the First Amendment, how? You're the government preventing college professors from speaking freely on political subjects you disagree with. That's infringing on free speech, yes, because of course it is. No, you don't understand. I was threatening to fire teachers for bringing up subjects that my political viewpoints don't align with for the common good.
Yep, it's always been that whole thing. It's all situational.
Well, you people,
Just like when people try to tell me what God says. How you gonna tell me what God says? Who are you? Who are you? And you know, basically that's where I come down to. So just like this thing here, it's all situational. You can find a way to kind of morph whatever you want into it. Like if you represent the majority, fun tangent. This is why I do not support the full eradication of the electoral college, because I don't think America should ever be majority rule. America has the propensity to do too much damage and hide behind the will of the majority. The minority must always be protected. So even like when the minority is the Trump supporters or the QAnon people, there's certain levels of protections they still need to have, as long as they're not trying to hurt somebody. So it's always all well and good to say majority is best, majority, the majority, when your best interests are represented by the majority.
Are the minority truly protected by systems that were put in place by the majority?
It's actually something you can really dig into, because I don't think anyone's truly well represented, period. Because even the ruling elite has to constantly change the rules to make sure that they remain such, right? And then the minority is, they're not protected per se, but they have more protections than they would if not. Because like the majority would really rather just say, right now, it's like the Shia and Shiite, right? Right now, the Shiite are in the majority. Therefore, the Shiites need to shut up and do what we say. Well, in America, the Christians are in the majority, so everybody else needs to just shut up and do what we say. And that's the danger of majority. See, we like to think of majority as, maybe just on the color line, but after the color line, you run into
ideology.
Other things. Yeah, you got economics that come into it.
Yeah.
You got color will always be there, because even if you get rid of black and white, now you have colorism, right? So you'll always have something there to separate. So yeah, that's why I say that I think they need to reform the electoral college in such a way that right now the majority is completely canceled out. Like the popular vote is completely canceled out from the presidential process. They just track it like a fun thingy. But the thing is, what about abolishing the filibuster in the Senate? Do I support it? In the short term, yes, I do support it. But mainly because ultimately the onus on how the Senate is comprised is 100% in our hands. Like the Senate is the one part of our government that's majority rule on the federal level. So the filibuster is an artificial construct that was put there but it was always put there in a way not to protect the rights of the disadvantaged. It was literally put in place to help keep the disadvantaged. So it's a complicated thing. So
what about with the majority ruling when it comes to electing governors, senators, mayors, etc.? Do you think that should be changed? Yes.
So I do not, mainly because I don't know what we'll replace it with. The only thing to replace it with would be what I would recommend for the federal level, which is a hybrid system where you have an electoral college married to a popular vote. I think if you find a way to bring those two together and find what is an effective weighting system for them, like I think the popular vote probably has a stronger weight than the electoral college vote. But I mean, that's something that could be negotiated and figured out. But I think they both need to exist because the electoral college, in a way, protects that minority group. So if you are here, I'm going to use Georgia. Georgia is a predominantly red state. And so when you look at who gets to be our senators and stuff like that, oftentimes you're subject to what does the rest of the red states say, even though they're sparsely populated relative to the concentrated places. But at the same time, these sparsely populated but much larger landmass areas, they deserve to have representation too. So I'm not 100% sure, right? I'm just not. I just feel that a pure popular vote is not always the best way, but on the state level, because of how much we self-select, it wouldn't be my first thing that I go after to try to change. Because I mean, what are you gonna do in Idaho? Idaho's like almost all white. I mean, but then you go to like, what's another one? Like Minnesota or North Dakota?
Wyoming.
Well, not Wyoming because ain't nobody there. But I was trying to go with like states where the indigenous people are there.
North Dakota,
yeah.
Minnesota
So they're like largely frozen out of representation.
Oh, we got somebody new on Twitch. First, we would have to know what is the replacement with, and how would that end up accomplishing the task, not just throughout the current system and hope for the best.
See, that's what I agree. I think the important thing is, like, we have to stop getting rid of the thing that is.
Yeah, we don't have
the expectation of putting something better there.
Yeah,
like with abortion, live wire issue, the abortion thing. You know, I support a woman's right to choose, but I have a lot of
whoever that was, appreciate it.
Well, thank you. But I have a lot of like layers to my own personal view on abortion. So when I look at that, I say, okay, so what would I personally, theists, would like? I would like there to be less abortions in America. I really do. I wish that we had less abortions. But my way of doing that is, how do we create a stronger safety net so that if someone does have an unplanned pregnancy and chooses to have that baby, they don't have to weigh, how will I feed my child? They don't have to weigh, how will I clothe and shelter my child? Like, take that part away so they don't have to worry about that. Then how do we make sure we have more education and things like this? Is a conservative argument, right? So have more education so that the children can understand. If you do this, biologically, this is what pretty much is going to follow. Like, procreation is not just recreation, right? It's literally you're designed. The reason why you have these urges, the reason why it feels so good, is because you're being stimulated to bring more people, right? So if you want to reduce the number of abortions, then you also need to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies. If you reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies, you have now accomplished your goal of less abortions. But now you need to make sure you've created an environment that fulfills what you're after. But see, what the Republicans did was they said, yeah, we want to do all those things. We want Congress to be able to put together a way to take care of women, but not until after we get rid of abortion. No. Build the net before you send the people up on a trapeze.
What about the idea of operational educational college, where each candidate get a percentage of the electoral votes based on the percentage of the votes they win in that particular state?
And I'm
I'll
assuming
because I don't know enough information about that.
I'm assuming he's feeding off of the original list of that are currently like majority wins type thing. So yeah, so that'd be kind of like blending a electoral college system in with the popular vote, if I'm following. And I would definitely agree with that. I think that would help a lot of the states who are currently under the thumb of either really conservative leadership or really liberal leadership, and they don't feel like they have a voice. You know, if you're a liberal in Louisiana, you probably don't feel like people are listening to you, and then you end up with a situation where it's like, well, what's the point of me voting? If you are a conservative in New York, right? Sometimes you might feel like, well, what's the point? I'm already outvoted.
For example, if it was Trump versus Biden, if there are 30 electoral college votes in New York and Biden gets 65% of the vote and Trump gets 35% of the vote.
Is there a comment right behind that?
Nope. For example, it is now.
Yeah.
And Biden would end up getting 20-something electoral college votes, and Trump would get around 10 electoral votes. So
I don't like the winner takes all system anyway, because that allows you to edge out just barely in Alabama, and then you get all of Alabama. But I want to say the Democrats have much fewer winner take all processes, because what they use is a super delegate crap. And then the Republicans have a bunch of winner take all scenarios because they don't do the super delegates. So both of them are fixing the game because they have a desired outcome, right? Like the Republicans are like, hey, if you can just squeeze through, take it all, right? So we can make this easy and get to campaigning. Whereas the Democrats are like, well, we got a lot more people, and they're not all that bright, or they're not going to do what I really want them to do. So we need to have these things called super delegates who could come in and kind of shift the weight a little bit.